Good day, Grade 12, and welcome to our virtual tourism classroom. My name is Penny Vosloo. I'm a tourism teacher in the Nelson Mandela Bay District. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the huge role played by Erica Ferreira, who is the subject advisor for tourism in Nelson Mandela Bay for Zone 1. Erica has compiled all of the material that today's lesson will be based on. And I'd also like to acknowledge the E-Teaching and Learning Directorate of the Eastern Cape Department of Education, who have made these virtual lessons possible. Right, if we take a look at Grade 12 at the extract from your curriculum, you will see a variety of bullets on the screen. Most of them were dealt with in the previous lesson, part 1 of World Heritage Sites. Today we will be focusing on the second last bullet, a description of all the World Heritage Sites in South Africa, as well as how each World Heritage Site meets UNESCO's criteria. We'll also be taking a look at their location on a map of South Africa. As we had last lesson, I just want us to take a look at the concept of a World Heritage Site. A World Heritage Site is a place of outstanding universal value that has been awarded international recognition by UNESCO. UNESCO stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. We are now going to take a look at the description of each World Heritage Site in South Africa and how they meet UNESCO's criteria. Our first World Heritage Site that we will be paying a visit to is the Cradle of Humankind. Take a look at the left-hand side of your screen. There you have the World Heritage Convention logo that I mentioned in the previous lesson on World Heritage Sites. You will see both in the table at the top of the screen as well as the map at the bottom that the Cradle of Humankind is located between Northwest Gauteng and Limpopo, so it's on the border of each of those provinces in South Africa. Now, if we take a look at the Cradle of Humankind, some detail with regard to the World Heritage Site, it is made up of 5 different fossil-bearing cave sites, and those fossil-bearing cave sites are called Sterfontein, Swartkrans, Kromdraai and surrounding areas, the Makapan Valley and the Taung fossil site. Now, each of these sites provide evidence on the origins and the evolution of humankind over at least the past 3.5 million years. Now, just as a word of explanation quickly on the term evolution, it is a process by which humans developed from primates which are now extinct. The major fossil findings found in the Cradle of Humankind: firstly, the Taung skull, which is the fossilized skull of a 3 or 4 year old child. And you will also see this one on your screen at the moment, Mrs. Pless and Littlefoot. Those are two other major fossil findings found at the site, the Cradle of Humankind. Look at the images in the center top of your screen. The fossilized skull looking straight towards you, that is the one on the left-hand side, that's Mrs. Pless. And the one slightly to the right above that is Littlefoot. On the other image that you're seeing there is that of a view of the inside of the Cradle of Humankind, where you have a tour group that is going to enjoy a guided tour of the World Heritage Site. Just as a matter of interest, the Cradle of Humankind has a visitors center, and the name of that visitors center is Maropeng. Now we will be looking at each of UNESCO's criteria and how the site adheres to that each of the criteria, and that is why it has been declared as a World Heritage Site. Firstly, to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. Now, grade 12, without a short explanation on each criteria, I think it's just a whole bunch of words on the screen. So as we go through each criteria, I'm going to just give you a little bit of additional information. Please note that additional information is not in this the text for this lesson. So listen carefully, and perhaps you could take some notes at the same time. So if you take a look at that first criteria that I have read through there, it speaks about an exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or a civilization which is living or has disappeared. And these caves that make up the site of the Cradle of Humankind throw light on the origins and the evolution of humankind, and that is how that speaks to the criteria of UNESCO. If you take a look at the second UNESCO criteria, you will see it reads as follows: to be directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic and literary works of outstanding universal significance. And again, sure, a whole lot of words on the screen. Let's unpack it a little bit so that we are sure exactly what this means. These sites have created a suitable environment for the preservation of both human and animal remains that allows scientists a window into the past. And let me just explain to you what was happening here 3 to 3.5 million years ago, or even longer before that. You had primates that were walking around the site, and they would perhaps fall into one of these caves that were located in this area. And because they fell into the cave, it was a perfect environment for the body to be preserved, because there were no animals that could get into the cave to eat the remains of the primate or the animal up, and so that allowed for the body lying in the cave to be very well preserved, and therefore it has a huge amount of scientific data which could be linked to the history of the most ancient periods of humankind. Our following World Heritage Site is Robben Island. It is located in the Western Cape. It is an island off of Cape Town. If you take a look at the image on your screen at the moment, you will see in the background there's Table Mountain with Cape Town lying in front of it, and the island is in the foreground of your photograph. Let me draw your attention to the left-hand side of the island as you are viewing it now. That is where the ferries land, and that is where the museum is located. There's not a museum, it's more a kiosk where you can purchase various things. And then if you continue looking at the image on your screen, you will see there's also the prison buildings that can be seen, and that is all part of the World Heritage Site. Take a note of the logo at the bottom left of your screen. That is that of the Robben Island Museum. All right, if we take a look at the information that has been given to you based on Robben Island, it is located in Table Bay in Cape Town. Now, Robben Island is probably most well known for the fact that it was a prison for political prisoners. In particular, Nelson Mandela was probably the best known prisoner kept there, but it was not always used as a prison for political activists. It was various times between the 17th to the 20th century. The Robben Island was used as a prison. It was also used as a hospital for socially unacceptable groups, and it was also used as a military base. So it has had, over the many years, a variety of uses. Its buildings, and in particular those of the late 20th century, which is the maximum security prison for political prisoners, all of those buildings testify to the way in which democracy and freedom triumphed over oppression and racism. And as I mentioned earlier, Robben Island is best known for the prison where Nelson Mandela spent much of his 27 years of imprisonment. He was most definitely not the only political prisoner that was incarcerated on the island. There are threats to Robben Island. You will see, if you take a look at your screen, poor maintenance and management. You can imagine that a site of this nature that is located on an island off the Cape of Storms gets battered by seas and bad weather. So maintenance is an ongoing process. And there's also the pressure of increasing visitor numbers, because you have many tourists that want to visit Robben Island because of the fact that it is such a well-known World Heritage Site. The right-hand side of your screen refers specifically to the UNESCO criteria. The first one reads as follows: to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. Now, if we unpack that just in one quick sentence, I could say to you that the buildings of which you see images on the top right-hand side of your screen, those buildings that are on Robben Island bear witness to the dark history of this prison, or this World Heritage Site. Could I also just remind you, I did say it in the previous lesson, that the tour guides that guide tourists through the prison are actually ex-inmates of the prison, so they will be able to give a very detailed account from a different perspective, should they not have been inmates of the prison. If you take a look at the second of UNESCO's criteria, it reads as follows: to be directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic and literary works of outstanding universal significance. And in particular here, grade 12, we are referring to the fact that Robben Island and its prison buildings are a symbol of the triumph of the human spirit, and also a symbol of freedom and democracy over oppression. So that is why this is such a significant World Heritage Site. The following World Heritage Site, the third one we are dealing with, is Isimangaliso Wetland Park. Now, Isimangaliso Wetland Park is located on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. You have the map on the right-hand side of your screen, and you will see the red triangle gives you an indication. Directly above that, you have just a table that indicates the type of site. So this is a natural site. Before I go on and look at the detail in the following slides, I just want to take some time to study these lovely images that are on your screen at the moment. Top left-hand side is an aerial photograph taken of the Isimangaliso Wetland Park. You will see the ocean and the beach area. You will also see the estuary as well as Lake St. Lucia. And that is one of the highlights of this World Heritage Site, the fact that it has 5 different ecosystems that are in a small area or smallish area. Directly below that you will see that there is an image giving you an indication of the variety of animals that can be found in that area, from the rhino to eagle to all kinds of marine animals. Then, speaking of marine animals, we have the image at the center of your screen, that is of the leatherback turtle, which is the Isimangaliso is the last place on earth where those actually nest, but more about that when we get to the next slide. You also have beautiful coral reefs in the ocean off of Isimangaliso, and the far right hand side you have the wetlands. And please take note of the plants that are growing there, as well as the bird species that are evident. Right, if we take a look at Isimangaliso Wetland Park, it is one of the outstanding natural wetland and coastal sites of Africa. As I mentioned when we looked at the previous screen, it has 5 interlinked ecosystems. And they are named there for you. Firstly, the marine, the coastal, the wetland, the estuarine and terrestrial, which specifically refers to the land-based. And each of those 5 ecosystems are scenically beautiful in their own way, and in a combined combination of those 5 interlinked ecosystems, you can imagine how the scenically beautiful this World Heritage Site is. And you will also note that a lot of it is basically unmodified by people. Now, as I indicated to you in the previous slide, you have coral reefs, you have beaches, sand dunes, lake systems, swamps, and wetlands. Those 5 different ecosystems support over 6,500 animal and plant species. As I mentioned to you earlier, this is the last place on earth where the giant leatherback and loggerhead turtles still nest. Unfortunately, we do have some threats to Isimangaliso Wetland Park, overuse from tourism, unsustainable fishing, and invasive alien vegetation. So I'd just like to stop there. Because it is such a popular site, you will find that a great number of tourists visit it, and this could result in overuse of the site. And then also unsustainable fishing. You will find that a large variety of the people that are living in this area actually use the lake as their food source, and that is why the statement is there, it is unsustainable fishing, because those people who are members of the local population are actually overfishing the lake, which makes it unsustainable. And I think invasive alien vegetation, it's not necessary to say too much about that. If we take a look at the UNESCO criteria, the first one indicated is to contain superlative natural phenomena or areas of exceptional natural beauty and aesthetic importance. Sure, quite a mouthful. If I can just simplify it a bit, we can make mention of the fact that the area is geographically diverse. It has a 22-kilometer coastline with the most spectacular scenic views. There's an abundant bird life that can be viewed there, as well as large numbers of nesting turtles on the beaches. You also have dolphins and whale sharks that are seen offshore. So those are a few of the reasons why this World Heritage Site was declared. If you take a look at the following criteria to be outstanding examples representing significant ongoing ecological and biological processes in the evolution and development of terrestrial, freshwater, coastal and marine ecosystems and communities of plant and animal. If we just try and simplify or give a reason why this site adheres to that criteria, it would be because of specifically the park's geographic location between subtropical and tropical Africa, as well as the coastal setting. And that coastal setting, together with the subtropical and tropical climate that one experiences in this area, have resulted in exceptional diversity of the species to be found in the Ismangaliso Wetland Park. The third criteria reads as follows: to contain the most important and significant natural habitats for in situ conservation of biological diversity, including those containing threatened species of outstanding universal value from the point of view of science or conservation. Now, if I can just touch sides here, if we unpack that a little bit, I'm not going to repeat the fact that the leatherback turtle is one of the last place that they nest. I think perhaps I must just make mention here of the 5 interlinked ecosystems that are found in Ismangaliso and provide a habitat for a significant diversity of fauna and flora. And this, of course, includes a large number of threatened and or endemic species. Then we'll continue to our next World Heritage Site, and that is number 4, which is Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park. If we take a look at the images on your screen, the top one is that of the amphitheater. I did mention it in the previous lesson, where that is an iconic image of the Drakensberg, Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park. You will see at the bottom a number of very well preserved rock art paintings, and also snow to be found there in the winter months. Look on the right hand side of your screen, there you have the location of the Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park on the border with Lesotho and KwaZulu-Natal. Then we'll take a look at Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park in detail. It forms part of the Maluti Transfrontier Park between South Africa and Lesotho. It has exceptional natural beauty, and you could see that in the previous image that I showed you on your screen, as well as a high level of endemic and threatened bird and plant species. Now, endemic means that that only grows or lives in a very specific area. So we're looking at two things here with Ukahlamba, the fact that it is an absolutely amazingly beautiful site, but it is also has a high level of both endemic and threatened bird and plant species. Another aspect that makes this site so important is the sand rock art of the Drakensberg, which was created by the San people over a period of approximately 4,000 years, and that particular site has the largest and most concentrated group of rock paintings in Africa south of the Sahara. So it is a site very rich in culture, specifically the sand rock art. There are some threats to the site. Firstly, the threat of invasive alien plant species, the threat of fire, of infrastructural developments, soil erosion. One experiences many tourists hiking in the mountains, so that will most definitely have an impact on the mountain trails. And you also have poaching as a threat. You'll see that this site meets 4 of UNESCO's criteria. Firstly, to represent a masterpiece of human creative genius. And that specifically refers to the concentrated group of rock paintings that are located in the caves amongst the mountains in Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park. The second criteria is to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. And I'm sure you must already know, without me even telling you, that that specifically refers to the San people who lived in the mountains in the Maluti Drakensberg area for many, many, many thousands of years. And this site is testimony to their way of life and their beliefs. The following criteria which the site meets is to contain superlative natural phenomena or areas of exceptional natural beauty and aesthetic importance. And I don't think I even need to say too much there. It refers specifically to the exceptional natural beauty of this area. And the final criterion that has been met by Ukahlamba Drakensberg is the last one on your screen, to contain the most important and significant natural habitats for in situ conservation of biological diversity, including those containing threatened species of outstanding universal value from the point of view of science or conservation. And all I would like to add on there, grade 12, is the fact that this site has a huge biological diversity and significant natural habitats, and these habitats protect a high level of endemic and threatened species. Then we continue to Mapungubwe cultural landscape. If you take a look at your screen, you will see the left-hand side at the top. That is an image of Mapungubwe Hill. Below that is from a vantage point that overlooks the area. On the right-hand side, you will see a table indicating that it is located in Limpopo province, and it is a cultural attraction. If you take a look at the map, it's right on the border with Limpopo, Zimbabwe and Botswana. And also I'd like to draw your attention to, in particular, the artifacts that are on the screen at the moment, in particular the golden rhino, because that has become synonymous with the Mapungubwe cultural landscape. And that is the bottom left-hand side image that you see there. Some interesting information about the Mapungubwe cultural landscape. It is located on South Africa's border with Zimbabwe and Botswana. During the Ice Age, around 900 to 1300 AD, the kingdom of Mapungubwe was the largest in southern Africa. It was actually a flourishing city and a trading center. And if you take a look at the right-hand side top of your screen, you will see that is an artist's impression of what the site actually looked like. Findings at the site have shown that its people traded gold and ivory with other African peoples and with countries such as India and China. So you will find various artifacts there that have indicated that the people that were living at Mapungubwe actually traded both gold and ivory with other African peoples as well as countries such as India and China. Now this site unfortunately became deserted over a period of time. The reason given is on your screen, second last bullet. In the 14th century, the region became colder and drier, and the people were forced to move away as the land could no longer sustain a high population using traditional farming methods. So when asked for a reason why the people moved away from Mapungubwe cultural landscape, there you have the reason on the screen. It is as a result of the change in the climate. It became colder and drier, and the people could not sustain themselves with their traditional farming methods. As with many of the sites, you will find that there are a number of threats. Firstly, the coal mine next to the site, the possibility that the government may grant more licenses for mining. And I'm sure you will agree with me that this is of huge concern to a World Heritage Site that that wants to locate tourists to its site, and these tourists want to enjoy what the site has to offer. And having a coal mine next to it and the possibility for more licenses for coal mining is definitely a concern. That would, of course, also create, apart from anything else, a huge amount of pollution that would impact on the area. Now, the UNESCO criteria that this site meets is firstly to exhibit an important interchange of human values over a span of time or within a cultural area of the world, on developments in architecture or technology, monumental arts, town planning or landscape design. Sure, what a huge big words and big sentences there. Let's unpack it so that it's easier to understand. You have encapsulated in this criteria the fact that Mapungubwe cultural landscape contains evidence that led to far-reaching cultural and social changes in southern Africa. The following criteria reads as follows: to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. Now, the remains that are located in the Mapungubwe cultural landscape are a testimony to the growth and the subsequent decline of the Mapungubwe state. And that gives a bit of an explanation about that specific criteria. The third criterion, to be an outstanding example of a type of building, architectural or technological ensemble or landscape which illustrates a significant or significant stages in human history. Now, I have already mentioned to you that Mapungubwe was a powerful trading state. It traded with other African countries as well as India and China, so that indicated a significant stage in the history of the African subcontinent. The final criteria reads as follows: to be an outstanding example of a traditional human settlement, land use or sea use which is representative of a culture or cultures, or human interaction with the environment, especially when it has become vulnerable under the impact of irreversible change. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit because that's quite a mouthful. I can explain it as follows. The remains in the Mapungubwe cultural landscape illustrate the impact of climate change and the fact that a culture became vulnerable to the circumstances and that led to irreversible change. So that brings us to the end of Mapungubwe cultural landscape. The following World Heritage Site is the Cape Floral Region Protected Areas. There you have lovely images of the fynbos and the protea, as well as a huge variety of other plant species that are found there. Now, as I said to you in the previous lesson, this is not one site. It is actually 8 different sites that are scattered around 8 areas. You will see an image on your screen at the moment. In the top right hand side there you have a variety of sites that form part of the Cape Floral Region Protected Areas. It looks like a lot more than 8. There's a whole lot of red dots there and marks there, but they call it the 8 areas of the Cape Floral Region. And as I mentioned yesterday, in the previous lesson, the closest that site comes to Port Elizabeth is the Baviaanskloof, so that will be the red dots that you see above Port Elizabeth there. The Cape Floral Region consists of 8 areas that stretch from the west coast of South Africa to the Eastern Cape. It is one of the richest areas for plants in the world, and in particular I want to make mention again of the Rigters, the fynbos plants that you have there. That particular area represents less than 0.5% of the area of Africa, but is home to nearly 20% of the continent's flora. So a fifth of the entire flora located on the continent of Africa is found in this area that comprises 0.5% of Africa. This site is of outstanding value to science because of its unique plant reproductive strategies that are adaptive to fire and seed dispersal by ants and termites. What you have happening there is your ants and termites that carry seeds from one place to the other, which results in them being dispersed. There are a number of threats to this World Heritage Site. Firstly, invasive alien species, fire, climate change, and pressures caused by a growing population, and those pressures would be of a developmental nature. This site has met two of UNESCO's criteria, the first one being to be outstanding examples representing significant ongoing ecological and biological processes in the evolution and development of terrestrial, freshwater, coastal and marine ecosystems and communities of plants and animals. Again, let's unpack that mouthful. All I could say there is that the site has outstanding universal value and represents ongoing ecological and biological processes specifically related to the evolution of the fynbos biome. The scientific interest here pertains to the adaptations of the plants to fire and other natural disturbances, also to the way in which ants and termites disperse the seeds, and the high level of plant pollination that is carried out by insects. The final criteria given on your screen now is to contain the most important and significant natural habitats for in situ conservation of biological diversity, including those containing threatened species of outstanding universal value from the point of view of science or conservation. Now, this is undeniably one of the richest areas for plants when compared to any similar sized area in the world. I did make mention of the fact that it has 1/5 of the flora on the continent of Africa, but only a very, very small percentage of the area. If we then continue to give you some statistics here, 69% of the estimated 9,000 plant species found in the region are endemic. In other words, they grow naturally there. The Cape Floral region has been identified as one of the world's 35 biodiversity hotspots. Our following World Heritage Site is the Vredefort Dome. What a lovely image on your screen. That is actually a satellite image of Vredefort, of the Vredefort Dome. You will see that line starting at the top in the middle of your screen going downwards is actually the Vaal River that runs through that area. The right hand side of the screen gives you a lovely idea of what the rock strata looks like, and you will also see that this site is located in both Northwest Province and the Free State, and it is a natural World Heritage Site. The Vredefort Dome was caused by a meteor that hit the Earth over 2,000 million years ago. Now remember, a meteor is actually a space rock that hits the surface of the Earth. In this particular case, disturbed a whole lot of rock strata underneath the Earth. But just take a look at the image on the right hand side of your screen. The first one that you see there, that is actually pieces of meteorite that are lying around in the area of the crater of the Vredefort Dome. Now that meteorite that landed on the surface of the Earth was approximately 10 kilometers in diameter, and it left a crater. Crater is a hole that is 300 kilometers in diameter. So that is one massive hole created by the meteorite that landed on the Earth. This is the oldest and biggest and most deeply eroded meteorite crater in the world, and provides very important information about the geological history of the world. There are many threats to a site of this nature. Some of the land, or much of the land, is actually privately owned, which means that special requirements, planning requirements are necessary. It's also essential that that landscape is kept natural, but public access must be maintained. This site has met UNESCO criteria number 8, as indicated on the right-hand side of your screen, to be outstanding examples representing major stages of Earth's history, including the record of life, significant ongoing geological processes in the development of landforms, or significant geomorphic or physiographic features. If we unpack that a bit, you will see that we can make mention of the fact that the Vredefort Dome contains high quality geological sites, and those geological sites are accessible to the scientists that want to investigate. And the sites demonstrate a range of geological evidence of a complex meteorite impact structure. Our following World Heritage Site is that of the Richtersveld Cultural and Botanical Landscape. Remember, grade 12, you need to make sure that you get the name right, the full official name. If you look at your screen, you will see the nomadic lifestyle of the people that live in this area, also the very, very arid conditions under which they live. Look at the map on the top right hand corner, and that will give you an exact indication of where the Richtersveld is located. Some information follows. Firstly, the Richtersveld is the home to the last remaining members of the Nama tribe, who still practice their traditional semi-nomadic way of life. So the people that you are seeing in this image and in the previous image are some of the last remaining members of the Nama tribe, and they practice a semi-nomadic way of life, which means that they move around a lot. And you'll see, if you take a look at the housing structure that is on the top right-hand side of your screen, the nomadic people who live in this area, because they are nomads, they can't build themselves a brick or stone house to live in. They have to be able to pack up their house and take it with them. And there is a lovely example. You will see that they build reed shelters, and that is an example that you see on your screen at the moment. They also collect medicinal plants and practice pastoral grazing with their sheep and goats. Their seasonal pastoral grazing sustains the extensive biodiversity of the area. So what you have is you have their sheep and goats that graze, and in their droppings you will find the seeds spread around the area, which immediately will extend the biodiversity of the area, because those seeds will germinate and eventually will grow into plants. This site provides a perfect example of how humans can coexist with nature without destroying it. We're going to take a look at the UNESCO criteria that have been met here. The first one is to be an outstanding example of a type of building, architectural or technological ensemble or landscape which illustrates a significant stage or significant stages in human history. Unpacking this specific criterion, I can make mention of the fact that this rich, diverse botanical landscape, which is inhabited by the Nama people, demonstrates a way of life that has persisted over many millennia. Over a large part of southern Africa, and that of course is indicative of a significant stage in the history of this area. The following criteria that has been met reads as follows: to be an outstanding example of a traditional human settlement, land use or sea use, which is representative of a culture or cultures or human interaction with the environment, especially when it has become vulnerable under the impact of irreversible change. Now this cultural landscape reflects a long-standing tradition of the Nama people, who are the indigenous community here, and how they adapt their life to be able to cope in this harsh landscape. Then we look at the Kumani cultural landscape. If you look at the images on your screen, you will immediately see lovely pictures of San, members of the San community that live in this area. You will also see that they have age-old methods of adapting to the area, as well as hunting and finding animals and collecting of water to help them to survive. Take a look at the map on the right hand side of your screen. There you see the exact location of the Kumani cultural landscape. It is located at the border with Botswana and Namibia. The site is associated with the culture of the formerly nomadic Kumani San people, as well as the strategies that allowed them to adapt to harsh desert conditions, because it is most definitely a harsh desert area that is found here. These Kumani San practice a traditional hunter-gatherer way of life, and in doing so they follow the tracks of animals for days on end, and eventually when they are close enough to the animal, they will kill the animal using a poisoned arrow. The Kumani San people have a vast knowledge about the use of plants for medicine, and have also developed skills to utilize scarce resources such as water and finding of plant foods in a very, very hostile environment. If we take a look at the criteria that have been met here, you will see the first one is to be an outstanding example of a traditional human settlement, land use or sea use, which is representative of a culture or cultures or human interaction with the environment, especially when it has become vulnerable under the impact of irreversible change. The best way I can unpack that for you, grade 12, is to make mention of the fact that this cultural landscape is uniquely expressive of the hunting and gathering way of life that was practiced by the ancestors of all modern human beings. They use very simple yet highly sophisticated technologies to use and to utilize and to obtain scarce resources such as water, plant foods, and this is done in a very, very hostile environment. The final criteria that the Kumani cultural landscape has met is that it has been directly or tangibly associated with benefits or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic and literary works of outstanding universal significance. And I can summarize that in simple English to say it's all about the vast knowledge of plant life of the Kumani San people, and also the use thereof for medicinal purposes. Our final World Heritage Site in the lesson today is the Barberton Makonjwa Mountains. If you take a look at your screen, you will see on the right hand side there's indication of where it is located, and you will see that it is in Mpumalanga but also borders with Swaziland. The images on the bottom of the screen give you a perfect indication of the rock strata that is evident in this area. The Barberton-Makonjwa Mountain site is one of the world's oldest geological structures, with volcanic and sedimentary rock that dates back 3.5 billion years. It is the only place on Earth where the development of the early Earth and evolution of life can be studied. And because of that, the Barberton-Makonjwa Mountains area is referred to as the genesis of life. This site has evidence of the oldest fossilized bacteria on the planet. It also has a rich diversity of plant species, all set in magnificent scenery. Now this has been developed and exposed for tourists. In particular, I can just make mention of the Geo Trail, which is a self-drive route for tourists to the area, and you will see images of the lookout points and what is on offer there that are along the Geo Trail. If you take a look at the criteria, you will see that it has met UNESCO's criteria number 8, which reads as follows: to be outstanding examples representing major stages of Earth's history, including the record of life, significant ongoing geological processes in the development of landforms, or significant geomorphic or physiographic features. In simple terms, that means that the rocks found at the Barberton-Makonjwa Mountains have revealed the earliest record of single-celled life forms, as well as the earliest and most significant geomorphic figures, including a detailed evidence of the process involved in the evolution of the original oceans and atmosphere, as well as the creation of the first continental landforms. That brings us to the end of the content part of our lesson in grade 12. We are now going to go over to an activity which comes from the November 2018 final question paper. The extract is based on the Kumani Cultural Landscape. Let's read it together. The Kumani Cultural Landscape, being declared a World Heritage Site, shows the acknowledgement by UNESCO of the universal value and importance of this site as a living heritage. The Kumani and other San tribes are unique in that they descend directly from an ancient group of people that existed in southern Africa many thousands of years ago. The Kumani San had a nomadic culture, nomadic meaning constantly moving around, and lived off the land. They used plants for medicinal purposes and for rituals. Few of the tribe members still practice their traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle. The Kumani San are skilled trackers, using traps, spears, bows and arrows coated with snake venom, which is poisonous, or poisonous plants when hunting. Many of the Kumani San also earn an income from tourism by selling traditional jewelry and artifacts to tourists. Now we have the first question on your screen. Give the name of the province where the World Heritage Site in this article is located. Oh, grade 12, I'm sure you know the answer to that. It is in the Northern Cape. Following question is: state the type of World Heritage Site of the Kumani Cultural Landscape according to UNESCO's classification. So what type of World Heritage Site are we looking at here? It is a cultural site. Following question, explain one reason why this World Heritage Site is referred to as a living heritage. Now, if you think about it for a second or two, you should be able to come up with the answer. Let's have a look at what is given on your screen at the moment. The Khomani San tribes are still living in this area, and they still practice some of the ancient cultural traditions. Then you have a continuation here. I'm not going to reread the case study. We're just going to take a look at the paragraph type question that we have been given to answer. In a paragraph, discuss how the Khomani cultural landscape being declared a World Heritage Site will support the rural development strategy for the Khomani San. You have to take cognizance of three aspects in your paragraph. Firstly, the improved quality of life. Secondly, the cultural pride and sustainability, as well as infrastructural accessibility. I just want to quickly draw your attention, grade 12, to the bottom of that screen that you see at the moment. It says note, 1 mark will be awarded for paragraph format containing complete, well-constructed sentences without bullets or numbers. When you are required to write a paragraph, please don't write bullets. A paragraph means that you cannot write bullets, you must use paragraph format. And there you have the answers on the screen. I'm giving you the answers in the interest of time. I think we might be running out of time, so let's just take a quick look at them. You are first referring to the improved quality of life, whereby an increase in tourism will lead to increased revenue, and therefore they can spend money on basic necessities, which can then improve their quality of life. Who is the they? The members of the Khomani San community. Cultural pride and sustainability. Due to the traditional practices that come from an ancient culture still being practiced today, they will protect their cultural practices. And your final bullet that you must pay attention to in your paragraph is that of infrastructural accessibility. The Khomani people will now also enjoy and benefit from the upgrades to infrastructure due to increased visitor numbers and increased interest to visit the new World Heritage Site. And there's also 1 mark awarded there for complete, well-constructed sentences written as a complete paragraph. Thank you, grade 12. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. I trust that you were able to gain a lot of information, and I wish you well. Goodbye.